companies that are utilizing it to help drive are the ones that are much more transformational and having more success.
Hey, what's up YouTube? Jeremiah Hersey here, and today it's all about iterator functions. Now, an iterator function is any function that's an X function like min X, average X, sum X, or the filter function also acts as an iterator function. What is that? Well, what an iterator function does is it looks over a table. So the first expression or first parameter inside of any X function is the table that you're going to be looking at. So when we're using iterator functions, once again, this is a table expression, and we're going to call out to the table and then define the new expression for what we want to calculate. If you want to follow along, there's a link in the description down below. You can download the PBIX file. Let's go ahead and get started. So here I am in my PBIX file in the data view, and I'm on the employee table. So the first thing I want to do is kind of explain what these X functions or iterator functions do. And so as we begin talking about these X functions or iterator functions, the first thing that I said is that it takes an entire table. So when we're dealing with any function like average X, sum X, min X, max X, any of these X functions, the first parameter or the first requirement is a table. So we're going to be working on a table expression. And so here's the idea of how an X function is going to work. Whatever table that you're looking at, I'm going to highlight it in blue. What it's going to do is it's going to take that table and then it's going to create a new temporary column attached to that table. Now, this new column is stuck in row context. Remember what we said about row context, that it can only see one row at a time as it's going through the table. Well, anytime we're using any of these X functions or a filter function, we are stuck in row context. And so this is something that is really important. So we're stuck in row context of the table. So this is what happens. So the second part of the X function is the expression. Okay, so once again, this is the expression. And it's defined using row context. And so when we are in row context, remember that we cannot reach out to other tables. And so we would have to use a navigation function or the calculate function to override that row context. So to activate the relationships between the tables. Okay, so let me show you how this works. So let's go ahead and create a new column on our employee table. Now let's say that we want to know how much profit one of these employees made. And we're going to find out how much profit each one of these employees has made. Now, remember that all relationships are based off of the key or the definition of how the tables are linked together, right? That's how they communicate and talk. So this employee key is going to filter down the sales table. So the name of this measure here, let's call this employee profit. All right, so what I want to do is I want to sum up all of the values for Hudson Onslow. So employee key 1, I want to sum up all of the values. And so notice here, if I just type in sum and I try to reach out to the sales table, okay, so here we go, sum of the sales table. And we want to take the profit. So most people would try to attempt to write this in this way. So sum up the sales profit for Hudson Onslow. So as we click return, what you're going to see is that we're going to get the same value in every single row in that new calculated column that we just created. You can see that right here. The reason this is also a good indicator that there is a relationship problem. So anytime you see repeated values over and over again, whether it's in a table or a matrix or in the data view, this is an indicator of a relationship problem. It's returning the same value for each person. That's not what we want. So then, we start thinking about, okay, well, I'm in row context. Those active relationships are deactivated. So we talked about this in a previous video. If I wanted to reach out, then I need to use a navigation function. So we could use a navigation function here. So the way we have to do that, though, is we're going to use a SumX function. I want you to notice what the first parameter of a SumX function is. It's a table. All X functions are iterator function, and the first parameter is a table expression. And so what table do we want to reach out to? Well, we want to reach out to the sales table. Now, what is the expression that we want? Well, we just want the sum of the profit column. So we're going to call out to the profit column here. Okay, once again, this is a iterator function, which means it's stuck in row context. So it's only looking at the sales table. So the active relationships between the tables are deactivated. So even if I write it this way, we're still going to see incorrect results because of row context. So anytime we're using an iterator function, we're stuck in row context. We're stuck in that table. So in this case, we're stuck inside of the sales table. We can't use any relationship or anything like that. This is bringing up the entire summation of the entire column for profit. So how do we individualize it? How do I make it so it's only looking at the profit for Hudson Onslow? Well, the way that we do that is by using either a navigation function or we can use calculate. Okay? So, once again, calculate activates the relationships. Okay, so it uses filter context instead of row context. So this is going to activate the relationship. And you're going to see now that we're going to be able to pull back the correct values for the specific employees using our active relationships here. So you can now see the values appearing. And so once again, we could either use calculate in this case, or as we learned before, we can use a navigation function. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to reach out using the related table navigation function. And then we'll return that. So SumX of the related table sales, that activates the relationship, this part right here, then take the profit for the related employee. So we're going to see if we run this, we're going to get the exact same answer here. Awesome. All right, so as you see, when we're using iterator functions like an X function, we're stuck in row context. And so what that does is it creates a new one column expression and then it defines it based on row context. And so what we wanted to do is filter based on that one employee the entire sales table, then take up the summation of the profit column. And so by activating those relationships with calculate or related table, we're able to do that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content. I'll see you in the next one.